Hello and welcome everybody. I feel a bit like I'm a bit deflated coming on after that amazing like crescendo at the end of that song there. I feel like seeing our faces afterwards is a massive letdown. Adam, the most popular phrase in the whole of 2020, you are on mute.
You put me on mute.
How are you doing? You okay?
I'm good, mate. How's things?
Yeah, very good. Busy as always, moving house, so been a busy day. But again, as always, we are back for another edition of the British American Football Roundtables in partnership with BAFCA and BAFA. So they're definitely not here to see us, and me and you definitely cannot coach linebackers because I had to test some of the questions with our guests today. So I don't know how you did this last week, so I'll let you introduce the guests or just bring them on all at once.
So what we'll do is we'll just bring them on and we'll introduce as we go. So we've got Fab.
Good evening, guys.
How you doing, Fab? You okay, mate?
GB under 19s linebacker coach.
Thanks for joining with Fab.
Cheers,
next
Fab.
one up, we got Russ Hewitt.
Little friend of the face, Russ. How we doing?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. I'm the U19 defensive coordinator for Great Britain.
Next one up, we got Simon Hatcher. Thanks for joining with Russ.
Hiya, thanks. GB students, the linebacker coach.
Pleasure to have you on again, Simon. Cheers for joining us.
Next one up, we got Ben Davies.
Hey guys, men's senior linebacker coach.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Definitely don't look as intimidating not in kit, Ben. I'm happier to see you this way.
Next one up, we got Abe.
Hey guys, you alright? Yeah, U17 outside linebackers.
Pleasure to have you on, Abe.
Yeah, thanks for joining, man. Next one up, we got George.
The under-17s inside linebackers coach.
Thanks for joining, man. And last but not least, we've got Phoebe.
Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? I am the under-19s outside linebackers coach.
Thanks for joining us. So we've got a few questions and things that we're going to go through today. Mike's pulled himself off. You probably hear him playing with the spoons or something as usual. So I can only apologise for that. What we're going to do, We've got some questions. We are missing someone as well, by the way, aren't we? But we'll pull up the first question. I'm going to let Mike go with the first question here, if he's ready.
No, we're sorry. The door was jammed, so I was helping my partner through the door. That's potentially why we're moving. So I'll head off with the first question. How do we teach patience on the first steps and to react quickly, and when some extra time to diagnose is important / allowed? We'll head over to Russ first on that one. I hope you understand it, hence me not playing or coaching linebackers.
Well, Coach Fab done his individual linebacker clinic on first steps earlier this week, and hopefully people have had an opportunity to see that. And he explained that with understanding about re-stepping, and quite often now, and I particularly coach the bouncing or the popping of feet. Giving the opportunity to stay in stance and to stay feet fire your feet while reading keys. That to me has allowed our linebackers to play a little more freer, play with their eyes, and then build from there.
Brilliant. And, I was going to say I'm fab for that, mate. Obviously, we touched base on in terms of what you did earlier on in the week. Do you want to just give us a 30-second elevator pitch on that one, if you can?
Yeah, of course. So thanks for the plug, Russ. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. There's a few details on there as to explanation of what first steps is all about. In answer to the question, so the question is really about the type of flow that you see in front of you. Typically, defensively, we just determine that as fast flow or full flow and sort of cloudy flows. So when you've got everything going in one direction, you know what your gap is, you can pretty much react a lot quicker because your eyes are telling you everything that's happening in front of you. When things are a little bit more mixed up, cloudy, different players moving in different directions, be it pulling offensive linemen, or two backs and one going one way, one the other. That's where the bounce step really brings itself to the forefront. It gives you the chance to diagnose using your eyes and your experience what's happening in front of you. I actually had a conversation with one of my U19 players this week about it, and the phrase that he sort of remembered me teaching him was go slow to play fast. So the element of giving yourself, and it's not very long, I'll be honest, it's probably about half a second that you get to watch what's happening in front of you, recognize it, and then you have to be full speed to whatever it is you determined is happening. So that's the importance of being patient. It's not 3 seconds of patience, it's about half a second before you got to go.
Perfect. Great. Cheers, Fab.
We've just put the link up as well on the screen, so if anyone wants to go back and watch it, we'd much appreciated.
Shameless plug for you there, Fab. Welcome to the media spotlight. And I'll just
comment, subscribe.
That's the one. Yeah. Good. I like it. And Abe and George, maybe a double on this one. For under 17s, do you find there's a difference with that because there's more space on the field? How does it work?
I think in terms of how you read, it's the same because you're looking at the same things. You need to be playing controlled. I think that's one of the things that you see a lot is people will be tempted to play as fast as they can because they want to get the jump on their opposite number. But quite often that will put you in a bad spot. And once you've lost your leverage, once you've lost your angles, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to struggle. So in terms of the space at GB level, there's no real difference because we're looking at getting those guys into the under-19s with that level of knowledge. So it's a case of sending them up to Fabs already being great at the skill, so that when he gets them, they can just refine it even further.
Perfect. And Ben?
So I like some of the suggestions when we start talking about bouncing steps. Sometimes I also look at taking progressive read steps if you need a second or third step. I think sometimes players can get stuck up on taking that first step, putting it heavily into the ground, and then you get stuck and you're rooted. So it's all about being light on your feet and continue to move through the play.
Simon, Abe, have you guys got anything to add to it?
The only thing I would add is there's some plays like say a toss or something, then reaction, you don't need to react very much. The ball's in the air towards the running back, you can flow a lot faster. But you might have some responsibility. So a linebacker might have BCR responsibility. So if flow goes away from them, then they've got to really slow up and look at sort of under keys, look at offensive line, see what's happening. That's your job then to analyze and say, is there somebody coming back? Is there a tight end off the line looking for a screen? So that's a sort of extended read period for them. So it really depends. Like Fab said, with the cloudy reads, which I really like, if there's divided or split flow, then you've just got to be a little bit more patient than if it's a toss or a dive. So
perfect. Thanks, Juan. We've got a question coming off Wayne. Obviously, we're going to get to this later on, but we might as well add it now. And I'll put it over to Phoebe or Abe first, since you guys haven't had a chance to talk yet. Just a quick one for everyone. Phoebe is out in the States, so if she ends up cutting off, don't worry about it. She's doing some great football stuff over there, so she'll keep joining back. So we've got, what is everyone's preference? Pop step, single foot, read step, freeze, double step, read step. That was so many words.
Cha-cha slide. Anything else?
So we'll hit that over to Phoebe first.
Go on, Phoebe first. Go on.
Okay, so I'll apologize now. Thank you. It might cut out, but it's a great question because I think over time this has evolved, which is what we want from football. We want to be moving with the times. For me, I love the pop step, like that pop read. But I'm also conscious that as I get to know my players better, and this kind of comes with time too, is, some of my players are going to take longer to read a situation. So I want them to be a bit quicker, or I want them to have that maybe one step forwards. Whereas some of my other players, I need to slow them down because they're almost overreacting to the play. But personally, especially I found with the younger ages, they're so keen to get involved in the run, which is great. but they take that pop step or they take that read step, and next thing you know, they're on the D-line's heels. So it's finding the happy medium and also understanding who your players are and what works best for them.
Perfect. And Abe, would you teach it differently for inside or outside linebackers?
Honestly, no, I wouldn't. I've always thought the same way, and that's always going to be one step. And I don't know, that's just maybe just me, but I just believe in the composure that gives you. I've never been a fan of a hop step, but no, I wouldn't teach it differently, personally.
That's perfect. What about anyone else? Would anyone else teach it differently for inside to outside?
I think if the linebacker's on the line of scrimmage, then that's a different situation. But off the line of scrimmage, then I just like gentle bounce. So don't think of it as a hop. Just light on your feet, really.
Yeah, kind of like your feet are on fire or hop pop. Just to stay active and buzz. Like Simon said, if you're at 3 to 5 yard depth, it's the same. But it's only when you come down or over a tight end, or if you try and play on or right on the line of scrimmage, can change. But I'm a big fan of pop step, and it seems to be the way they get the game's going because of how offensive attacking is.
Perfect. And Cadell's commented saying steps depend on coverage. Ben, do you agree, disagree? I'm assuming he knows his stuff.
So just briefly on that previous point, I do tend to use a different stance for outside linebackers to the inside. Inside guys are more square, feet under the shoulders, whereas the outside guys, because of the space, we've got a bit more freedom, and so that's where we use. We describe the swag stance, where we've got 1 foot up. Typically, the foot up nearest the line of scrimmage. Maybe we've got a bit more movement pre-snap. Then I might allow the inside linebacker. It's still going to be jabbing with that inside foot towards the ball, towards the line of scrimmage in our read. I think that for linebackers, because our first responsibility is going to be the run play. I hope all the coaches here agree with that. And then coverage responsibilities are once we've diagnosed a passing play. So our read step should be the same on 99% of plays. Once we diagnose it's a pass, then that comes to our second, third step when we transition to a pass drop. But yeah, starting to play the same every time is a real important foundation to good performance.
So going back to the video, Fab, do you have any like buzzwords or anything like that you would use to get across to some of the younger guys?
For describing the stance or the pop?
The pop, the step, whichever one you want to go with. Just some key buzzwords, so any young linebackers looking out now can try to key off these buzzwords, if you will.
Yeah, so the concept of pop or hop is not to get air underneath the feet to leave the ground. It's really just like Russ and Simon have said, is to distribute the weight within the foot further towards the front, and it's just a gentle sort of patting almost of the ground to then react and be ready. Abe and Ben have talked about your first step is still forward because primarily you're a run defender. So even though you have a pop, like that pop could move 2 inches forwards, but your momentum has already started to go forwards. So that when you take your next step, it's not a negative step. It's not a backward step to then go forwards. In my video, I alluded to a few bits that kind of cross over from other sports such as tennis. And they have what they call a dig step, which is just to split the feet on so they'll start square, then they'll split the feet, one forwards, one back, to run forwards and run backwards. They have a very different stimulus to us in football. They have a ball, it's coming from them, they can see the trajectory of it, no other moving parts in front of them. Football, you have to be able to be a lot more balanced and change direction halfway through your first set of movements, as it were. So in terms of buzzwords, it's just being light on the feet. We use stuff like bounce and pop, make sure that they know what that means, that they're not looking to get big steps, that like heel to toe, that kind of ratio, a couple of inches. And it needs to be overcomplicated. I saw Cadell put a comment about coverage as well. So yeah, that's something that will factor into the stance and into the first couple of steps. If you're a true middle linebacker and the coverage is like a Tampa 2 and you've got a deep, you've got to run to the deep hole, then you're going to need to be able to flip the hips quickly in order to turn and run. So it's important that your stance reflects that. If you're a Will or a Sam further out, towards the edge of the tackle box, and your coverage area is down into the flats, for example, then your body angle that you're going to need to take is different. So you have to you can use different alignments and different footsteps to get there.
Perfect. And I know a few of you guys touched on this already, but why has the stance changed over time? Like, what's made the change happen? Abe, I'll go to you first, if that's all right, man.
Yeah, I mean, sort of the wrong person to go to. We're talking about over time, but
over your time, Abe, just your time.
It hasn't
changed since yesterday. It changed yesterday.
There you go. Yeah, I suppose it's just that the sport's always evolving, and the positions are always evolving. Someone finds a better way of doing something, and then everybody else copies it. That's the only reason I see it changing. But in my time that I've coached linebackers, has only been in the past 4 years that I've actually converted to the position. So I've coached one way and one way only, pretty much, in my whole time.
Dare I say? I was going to say,
you get so you watch the NFL. A lot of fans watch the NFL, and you can see the alignments have changed. The true Mike linebacker's not there anymore. They play at a greater depth, and sometimes with safety types, slighter linebackers, because of the way the game is changing in the NFL. That's probably filtered through a little bit from the NCAA. I know we're not at that level. I understand that, but that's kind of where the game's changed. The body sizes, and as Coach Fab was saying, the biggest part. And most of us coach our positions all the time, and trying to find a good NFL linebacker stance on film, like Coach Fab did, and I've done the same for my presentations. It's tough sometimes. I've had to go back to Urlacher and Ray Lewis to find a great stance. But then you're going to look at how they adapt now. So that's probably part of it. Yeah.
Great question came in. If you could build the perfect linebacker NFL players, what would it look like? I'll cover that one. It's Luke Kuechly. Just look him up. So I'll just put that one to bed, guys.
Right. Have you heard anything that Mike mentioned? Something about the Panthers on your bingo card? Put your dauber on it now.
So Simon, to yourself, do you think stances have changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, well, if we're talking a lot of time, and this is before my time even. Yeah,
I wasn't going to pass comment there, Simon.
I mean, Dick Butkus used to be like 1 yard from the line of scrimmage with his feet past shoulder width apart, because there was no passing game, and it was just dives and powers. Yeah, so as the passing game's evolved and the rules have changed to develop the passing game, coverages have changed. So linebackers have had to become a lot more adaptable, covering a lot more space. So, and it's just the way the game has evolved. Now, if offenses started evolving back to wishbone, two tight end formations, then linebackers would start to widen their base and start getting closer to the line of scrimmage, but that isn't the trend. So that's where it's changed mostly.
Perfect. And on the risk of repeating any of that, I'll just fire a question over to Ben here from the comments, which is, for QB option plays, what are the preferred linebacker reads?
Interesting one, because there are several different QB options we could have. We could talk about. So if we think about some kind of inverted Husker with the running back going to the outside, I'd expect an outside player, outside linebacker or safety to take the running option, and the linebacker in the box to stay patient, watching quarterback, making sure we've identified the play's gone. So that'll be through to the quarterback. If it's a speed action, then the linebacker's in charge of inside linebackers in charge of the inside gaps. We come down and take the dive. Outside linebackers, my preferred option is to force the pitch, whoever's the edge man on the line, to attack the quarterback, put the ball in the air. It suddenly becomes much more like it's going to be a fumble, going to be a problem. And you get a shot at the quarterback, so you always got to take that.
Perfect.
I just want to go back to that last one just a second ago. Do any of you guys think the linebacker position really changed when you started getting these tight ends that can run ridiculously fast and catch the ball rather than just block now. Because for me, watching the sport, I think that changed the game realistically.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the pro level that we watch on TV there, really and truly. And these guys are genuinely phenomenal athletes. And as we've just alluded to, the evolution of middle linebackers in true was they were fast, big guys, capable of stopping the run. They didn't have a lot of pass responsibility. Nowadays, there is a lot more 5 dB, 6 dB sets in the pro and the NCAA, where you're relying on hybrid linebacker safety type players that can come down and be physical against a run block from a tight end that probably outweighs them, but has to have the speed, has to have a greater speed than them to be able to cover them from a further away field. I think for us over here in the British game, it's not such a wide disproportionate disparity. There you go. Thanks, Simon. Disparity in speed and size from our tight ends to our linebackers. So typically we should be able to cover that with just a base linebacker or safety type.
Perfect. And a question here I'm going to put this one over to George. What's the hardest read element of linebacker play, and what do you coach to solve it?
That's quite a tough question. I think that there's quite a lot of elements to that question. So the hardest read, realistically, you want to simplify your reads as much as possible. So there shouldn't really be a hardest read. If you're breaking your reads down and making them easy, I think we're probably going to touch upon this a little bit later, going from O-line reads into backfield flow. If you can break those down, there shouldn't really be a difficult read. Now, you're going to get cloudy reads where you're getting split flow. You're maybe getting some kind of pull away with running backs flowing out the other side. They're very difficult, but at that point, you've got to trust your scheme. If your read is to follow that pull, you need to follow that pull, and any kind of running back flowing the other way, anything that's taking you away from your initial read, you have to trust that in your scheme, it's built to cover that. I think that also comes down to how you build your playbook. You need to make sure that effectively whatever gets thrown at you, you can cover. And that's one of the big things in designing your defensive playbook, is basically taking away the hard reads and saying, if it's cloudy, wait, go slow until you know. If it's cloudy, it will appear, and at that point, then you need to, put a foot in the ground and make the play. I suppose the next part would be, if you're an inside linebacker, the hardest element of the play would probably be trying to filter through a lot of mess. The offensive line, the defensive line will put a lot of mess in front of you, and you've got to read through that mess, but you've also got to play through it. So it's about being able to filter through all of that information, being able to filter through all of those scenarios and track the ball. And that's one of the most difficult things, I think, about making a good play as a linebacker, especially inside.
Perfect. Great answer. Cheers for that, George. I'm just trying to, we're getting quite a few questions coming through, so I'm just kind of trying to bring them, because I don't think we'll be able to lap round to these at the end, guys. So do bear with us. And does anyone coach an over wide stance? So the re-step is simply bringing the feet to a normal whip stance. I found useful to slow down players previously. Anybody?
My experience is, especially recently with the NFL Academy, is I'm getting a lot of crossover athletes. So trying to get them up to speed as quick as possible and teaching them everything we've discussed so far with regard to getting their eyes correct in the stance. We try and bring it to a nice, comfortable stance, not over, I wouldn't say over wide, wider than shoulders, making sure they got great flexion as we've shown in all our videos we put out. So good bend. I like the wrist cupping the knee to get the height. And also it pulls their chest back, keep their body up. So I've always found if they get great flexion, they can keep their hips low and their eyes up. So then we've got a good opportunity to do a good play where I haven't really widened anyone's stance over the top. I like to keep it comfortable.
Brilliant. Cheers, Russ. And a synopsis of this one, I'm thinking guard reads are a good base way to teach young linebackers, and adding them to the triangle at the backfield and the guards at the same time. Is that nods of approval on that? Is that kind of base level in terms of the first thing you're going to teach, which is read guards, and the rest will follow? Fab?
We talk about triangles, whether you're from the inside or the outside. Typically, the deepest back will be the base or the back point of your triangle. And then if you're, like I say, true middle, you're probably going to go guard either side through to the running back. And if you're offset to one side, it will be tackle to center and back into the backfield. It takes a lot of practice to learn to watch the offensive line and not just the ball carrier, because ball carriers often given the chance to move around back there. And if your eyes just go to him, you miss the offensive line coming out at you to get their angle on. It's a drill that I was taught and repped thousands of times through practice. One of the downsides probably is that you end up using the linebackers as offensive line. They're not particularly good at replicating those movements per se, but it does give you a chance just to keep repping and repping. And it's also, I guess, where film study comes in. We're not high school athletes and coaches, and we're not on the field every day. So to be able to watch the offensive line movements and learn how your triangle moves, depending on your position, film study is really important for that.
Just to add on to that real quick, I've actually gone with a coaching directly behind the linebackers before, added a GoPro to that, especially with young, inexperienced linebackers, so they get to, when you get a film study, because it's generally behind the offense or sideline. So we've added an umpire cam to allow, so we can actually use the GoPro to actually open up our vision. You've got the fisheye lens there, and it's really helped our progression of our younger linebackers see. So they can actually see the offensive line, how it moves. So on video, you can use that a lot more. So to add on to what Coach Stab said with film study, that's been really beneficial.
We've had a comment come in here. I think we might have already covered it, but we'll pull it up anyways. It's from Steve. Where do you like to get your backer the key, i.e. back guard, etc.? So where would you preferred place the key from? We'll go to Abe. You want this one? Abe, I think you muted yourself.
You good?
Abe, are you there?
I think he's.
Oh, his sound seems to have dropped out. Your sound seems to have dropped out, Abe.
Do you want me to cover it while he's?
Yeah, go on, Sam. You cover whilst, and if Abe interrupts us.
So really, there's two sort of way. My preference is actually go from the back to the offensive line. So I prefer to read the flow. So we talk about fast flow or direct flow, which is, if it's fast flow, then you know exactly where it's, because offensive linemen don't always give you the greatest key in the world. Yeah. Until you're at a higher level, they're not giving you the greatest key. So you can look at fast flow or direct flow and just meet the running back in the hole or the outside. And then you go to under keys, which is the offensive line, if the back key is a bit cloudier. So, I mean, it's personal preference, really. And then
Look After My Bills gets you a great energy deal and switches you
TV on.
I don't know what's happened there.
And then, but
sounded like the X-Files.
But other coaches might do the offensive line. So you read the offensive line and then the back. So it's really a choice, and it can be depending on what level you're playing at, or what your linebackers like, or just your scheme. Hope that covers it.
Mike, we've just had a video there posted by Fab in the private chat. Can you try and pull that up?
I will attempt to pull that up.
Let's see
that
if
is
we can
I
do
think
it.
that was me secretly playing that separately, and everyone caught on that I had it on loud. So I do apologise, everyone. Those sneaky adverts got me.
We'll go to the next
on?
question until you can get that video up. So we've got reads: do coaches teach flow to under keys O-line or under keys to flow or something else?
Well, that's what I was just talking about. So
I know, but we've got to pull it up on the screen so people can see. Simon.
Yeah. So other coaches can give their opinion.
we'll go Fab. Since you've done videos, let's hear your opinion on this one.
Mike, are you bringing up that?
Yeah, I'm gonna let me just try it without the sound. If not, I'll download it and drop it in.
Can I just test my sound?
Yeah,
we can hear you. Right? Don't worry, you're here with us, brother. Yeah, we can hear you.
So this was a video part of a presentation I give to my U19 guys. Jump to 39 seconds, you get past all of this hype stuff. Russ, you'll appreciate this.
Yeah, I know exactly. Pyramid, right?
We talked about. Play it without sound, mate.
Sorry, mate.
And maybe hit some. All right, so you guys can see an example of how fast everything moves at you. The offensive line there is given a full flow, everything in one direction. Here you're getting a bit of Claudia. He's got responsibility. If there's blitz on the QB. Hopefully, this video, I like this one. I showed it to my U19 guys last year when we were locked down and couldn't really coach much. You see full well how kind of mixed up the view is in front of you, and obviously this is a real good speed because this is a top university in America. But again, there you go. You see a pull. So we're not showing you the triangle, and it takes time to see those triangles and see. But whether, like Simon said, you read from back to front or front to back, yeah, the offensive line here give you a good read. If you're not getting that because the offensive line that you're against isn't all in unison, and with respect to all of the British game, aside from probably some of the higher tier teams, that you're getting novice guys to the sport, it's not going to look like this. So watching the back is like Simon said, is sometimes more valuable than watching the offensive line. But in theory, they should all be on let's say a stretch, a toss, even a lead. They should all be going in the same direction versus a counter or some other play where there's a cloudier read when your patience is needed.
Yeah, I think one thing to kind of add to that is if you're not getting great reads from the line, it probably means that you're going to have quite an easy job for the most part, because if that line isn't coming out of their stance quick and aggressive and you're not getting good reads, you're going to have a really fun time. And then going to the back is great because you can just play the ball, and that line isn't going to be on you. They're not going to be on your toes, which means that you've got plenty of space to work with. If you're getting bad reads and they're basically just stuck to the line of scrimmage, you're going to have plenty of room to work with. So going to the back then is great because you can just flow.
Perfect. Cheers for that, George. Great insight there. Just to give everyone an update, unfortunately, Phoebe won't be joining us back again. Her phone keeps heating up too much, so she's had to dip out. So it must be hot weather over in New Jersey. So I think we're going to drop into. Ironically, we're going to drop into some zone technique now. So expanding on the zone drop technique regarding lower body and upper body working independently. Do we turn and run back pedal? Can that change depending on D&D and responsibility? It was hard enough for me to read out, so I'm going to hand that over to Ben first, and hopefully you can digress that and share the actual light in it, because I was just reading words for everyone.
Yes, sure. It's certainly our drop back technique will change based on our responsibility. So I don't personally get my linebackers to backpedal. If they can do it, it's a nice to have. But obviously the DBs, they go and spend half a practice training their backpedal. Linebackers, we need to deal with other things. So Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at hip flexibility. We're looking at being able to get my feet and my hips turned, pointing the way I want to go. So if we use a landmark, maybe back at 45 degrees, maybe you want to be aiming at a point which is 10 yards down the field at the sender number 2. Those are some of the language that I use. Turning a run, we will use if we're in man coverage or if we have no idea where our receiving threat is. You need to find someone to cover. So turn and run and go and find some work. Most of the schemes that we work with is pattern matching. So pre-snap, we already have an idea who we're going to be covering, but it's important to have that flexibility to keep my eyes open to the field, be able to see whether it's 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 in terms of numbering the receivers, to be able to see and see if there's going to be an exchange, so we can react to that. So I think that's all the points.
Yeah, nailed it, Ben. Tick. Well done, bud. Anyone want to add on to that? I'll leave.
I think it's a question that came up when we were discussing, because Coach Maxwell done some presentations on spot dropping, and there's different parts of coverages. So it was to elaborate on that. Ben's hit the nail on the head with you can spot drop, you can drop to a space in the field, and that's more generally turning the lower body, running to a spot, or trying to keep yourself square to see what's going on, zone eyes. I'm with Ben. I'm a zone match type of coach. I prefer that. So I'm trying to get my linebackers to relate to their threat and then drop accordingly. And the only thing that really hurts us out of that is play actions and RPOs nowadays, where their exit angle may be slightly different. So they may be late to the key or late to their read or late to trying to match because of whatever's happened. So we just don't bail out of there. So that kind of really answers it. Ben hit the nail on the head on one side, and it was an explanation off of Coach Maxwell's spot dropping. There's 2 different ways to play zone.
Oh, brilliant, guys. Anyone else to add or anything different before we move on to the next question? Silence is king on that. Thank you very much, chaps. Unless I've just cut someone up.
Well, I was just going to say, so one of the a coach sort of told me a great analogy. You sort of, when you're dropping, you're like a tank. So the bottom half of you turns and runs back to get some distance, so get some range. But the top half is turning and looking where all the threats are and to the quarterback. So they are sort of almost independent. The lower part of the body's running to the spot you need to get to, and the top half's turning like a tank turret, looking for where the threats are or looking at the quarterback. And then on Maxwell's video, he showed a great example of where you adjust it. So Matt Eva was on the boundary side, so he was in the short side of the field, so he knew he didn't have to turn and run because he didn't have very far to go. So he just shuffled out so he didn't overrun anyone. He just kept everything in front of him. Whereas if he was on the field side, he may well have had to turn his body a little bit more and get that distance. So it's really important to understand, and football IQ, to understand how far do I have to get? Yeah, what sort of threat is there to cover?
Yeah, brilliant. I think, Fab, you had something else to add to that.
Only to add that, if you go back and watch Max's video, there's absolutely no reason that a team can't do 1, 2, or 3 types of coverage, and they're skills that you have to learn. Physically, you have to learn to, like Simon's alluded to, the sort of tank analogy of running and being able to look back. You have to be able to shuffle like Matt did, because you haven't got the same range to go and cover, and that you have to basically be able to, as soon as you get to sort of better level, even in the UK, you have to be able to do multiple types of coverage, not just one.
Brilliant. Cheers, Fab. I've just popped there's Max's video we keep referencing to, so if you want to jump on and watch that. I'll plug Max because unfortunately he's not here tonight, so I don't mind doing a bit of plugging for once. Like, share, and subscribe. Also, Fab did a fantastic video as well, so you can also follow him up on Facebook. His links are down below and all that usual nonsense. So I don't know if we already touched on this, but how can the linebacker under coverage help regarding the deep passing game. I almost sounded like I knew what I was talking about there, chaps. I'll hand it on to hopefully someone a little bit more knowledgeable on that. George, I'll let you fire off with that one first, bud.
So I think in terms of answering this, I think you're looking at the angle of the throw in terms of helping your deep defenders out. So if you are playing underneath the play and you're effectively creating some kind of confusion for the quarterback as to where you are, it's going to be a harder throw for him to make. So if you're nowhere near and the throw is completely vacant underneath, that throw can be flatter, it can be a bit harder, which makes it much more difficult for your deeper defenders to cover because the ball's going to be there quicker. They're going to have much less time to react and get into their play. So if you've got some good coverage underneath, the ball is then going to have to be put on a slightly higher arc because if it's thrown flat, you're going to be in a position to pick it off. So if that ball goes slightly higher, there's a bit more arc, there's going to be a bit more air underneath it. That typically is going to allow the deeper defenders a bit more time to read it, react to it, and go make a play themselves.
Brilliant. And we'll, Ben, anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, we can. I think Max touched on it in his video. We can absolutely redirect collision the receivers. Not to say that we should chase them around the field trying to hit them, but being in a position, one hard shove into a shoulder pad, or sometimes just judging where they're running and putting your body in the way is enough to get them off their route. And, all their practice, they're running routes against air and getting the timing down with the receivers. Well, now suddenly they're 1-2 steps out of alignment. The quarterback doesn't throw the right distance because of that, and it gives us an opportunity. It's important as well to understand where our help is, what the coverage scheme, what the overall idea is. So I think most of us are thinking about seam routes or a post or a deep dig where we've got a safety over the top. And so we can almost end up bracketing that receiver, one guy on either side. Makes it much more difficult decision for the quarterback to go to throw that ball.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? It's whether it's middle field open or closed, but the safety's on the hat seams, so we don't have to protect the seams, or is it cover 3 or a version of cover 3 where the seams are open, so we can actually help with allowing no free access. But yeah, the coach just kind of hit it there.
Perfect. A great comment. Sorry if anyone was going to jump in. It's my job to do the cutting up. Don't worry, guys. What coaching points do you have for collisioning threats when in zone coverage? I swear to God, I'm going to be a linebacker coach soon with all this knowledge. Simon, over to you, bud. You can take this.
Okay, yeah. I'm not a big fan of using collisioning because that's sort of you're sort of lunging towards, but definitely. So let's take the seams like in Matt's video. Just sort of lean on the receiver and just leverage him out of his seam. Make sure you're in that sort of passing window. I don't think I would try and sort of and crossers. Really, you want your eyes on the quarterback, but if you see a crosser, he's got to go round you rather than the other way around. So just sort of step in front, make sure he has to go under you or over you, that sort of thing, and then get the timing right for the slants. Yeah, be in that slant window as we call it. So you make sure you don't. If you buzz out to the flat too quickly on a slant, then the slant goes by you and they catch it inside. So just make sure that you sort of got your vision, and we talk about good eyes. So make sure you're in that position there. So, but I would avoid that, and I've never seen anyone be able to do it. Sort of just collisioning random receivers crossing across. Just make sure you get in their way and leverage them out of their position. Hope that helps.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, cheers. Abe, have you got anything to add on there? I missed you a couple of times.
No, it's something I hear quite a lot, especially from people that actually play the position, of wanting to hit the receivers on the inside, especially. But like Simon's already alluded to, it's just about putting them in a position where they don't want to be, and throwing the offensive out as much as you can. It's just that little bit of sort of leverage of help, if you like, defensively. It's not about just lighting people up on the field, like you said, chasing people around, just putting people out of their own positions.
mean, I suppose it's not the bad thing in the world. I suppose playing linebacker, it's part of the course, isn't it? Trying to light someone up as well. Fab, anything to add on that, bud?
Just that, like, so you start at 5, that kind of box area, like a no-go zone, like no one gets a free run through there. It's not that you're going to find them. They have to like navigate their way through that box, and the fact that you're in the middle of it and moving is generally enough to upset the timing. But anyone come within a yard of you, like, you're going to put some hands on them. It's not about like, you know, some sort of big kill shot. It's just disruption. Collision is you are
just a bit of meat on the bone, isn't it, Fab? Just give them a little meat on the bone.
Yeah, you know.
No free access. That's what it is. There's no free access. They're not allowed to come across.
Exactly.
It's like the influence block that a lot of us teach on kickoff return, where we want to put ourselves in a position to get them off the straight line or the track that they want to run. So it doesn't have to be a big hard block. Just influence them, put your body in between where they are and where they want to be. And it just messes up the timing, messes up their step.
It looks pretty, though, when it is a big one, though, doesn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, come on, lads. Yeah, who are we kidding here? I've seen some of you lot play.
You just got the linebacker stand shouting, "No one runs a slant on me." I love it.
Not in my house. So I love swiftly moving on. How might a player angle of drop change depending on the factors of the offense? Might give clues for. I think I read that wrong.
That's right.
Right, Ben, you saved me last time. I'll let you take this one off me.
Sure. So I spoke about landmarks before. If we're doing it in practice, we might just go on an angle or a cone. Not necessarily the best. I like to have a number 2 receiver lined up, and for mostly underneath coverages, my aiming point wants to be 10 yards down the field at the top of that number 2 receiver stem. So then I can have my eyes on him, diagnose whether it's a post, a slant, a seam. We're going to get some exchange between the number 1 and the number 2. And I'm, like I said, putting my body in a position to stop him from having a free run down the field. So the angle will change based on how wide out that number 2 is, and I'm gonna need to shift my alignment. How fast do I think that receiver is? Is he getting confident because he burnt me on the last play? So now as an outside linebacker, maybe I want to go and stand a bit closer to him and make him think about what I'm doing in my coverage. I think that.
Perfect. And anyone to add anything more to that? George, maybe?
I think the only thing to add on would probably be down and distance. So if you're in a third and fourth long, you're probably going to take a slightly deeper angle, just because you know that you're more likely to see deeper routes. So your angle is, you're going to want to drop deeper to get underneath those deep routes. But yeah, that's probably the only thing to add on.
Brilliant. Any more on that?
It was just, and it's the exact opposite of just what George said. If it's a short yardage, you're going to sit down harder on the run earlier, which means you're going to be late into coverage, depending on what you get look you get. So short yardage opportunities, your exit angle will be slightly deeper, so you may have to get out late and quick. That's the only thing that really changes there.
What about formation-wise? Would you change formation-wise?
We definitely would. It depends on it's the opponent you're trying to play. So if you're playing with a 6-man box, I think most of us play with a lot of the opportunity of nickel defenses at GB. So it's a 4-2 or a 3-3 box, and then what the split's like. What formations, offensive formation you're getting. So we always apex plus. We're widen a little bit more on apex than just being middle at depth. But I would say definitely you can align and change, and it gives you more time to make your reads.
Just because obviously we're kind of putting this out more to coaches than players per se, but with how things are, players are probably having to coach themselves a little bit. We're familiar with like a wide receiver route tree. There's a very similar basics of movement for linebackers and DBs and whatnot as well. And I'll go back to the sort of fundamentals of practice. You read that as it's in the air.
Yeah, and you can purchase them from
kids.
You can
When you
purchase
go
them from
into a
EP
huddle.
Sports.
Swipe
You
up.
want a plug? Swipe
Use
up.
code footballing.
The guys have covered like down the importance of what's going on in front of you, the field, the position, the down distance, all of that stuff. From a practice perspective, back to coaches, to be able to practice those spot drops effectively. I'm not a fan of cones because it just teaches like run to a cone, and there's not you run with your head down, especially like young players like not thinking to look outside. So having an area, a region, and if they're 6 inches either side of the cone, like it doesn't really matter, to be able to train their eyes at the same time. So 45-degree drop, a deeper drop, a drop and a bail, a back pedal, a change of direction. All of that stuff is really important that everyone's practicing that to get better at coverage.
Perfect. And a great questions came through here, and I'm going to link this onto another one afterwards. What is the biggest differences you see in linebackers when comparing the lower levels of UK football to the highest levels? We'll go to speed. Great point. Simon, anything different from you other than speed?
Well, I mean, it's obviously just the athleticism, size, and speed. But I think the lower levels you can really get away with just somebody that's a good athlete that understands the game. But the higher the athlete, and as you see it with the sort of NCAA and NFL, they recruit based on size and speed, and you don't get many sort of players that are just smart and they're lacking in the size and speed in the NFL just because it's just not done. But you can definitely get away with it at our level, just to understand the game, have good technique. It doesn't matter really, what size or speed you are, as long as you understand the game. So, that's the big difference, really.
Yeah,
that's like a double part question, really, as well, because you're talking about levels. We have the coaches at the bottom here of the screen have to deal with U17 players that come from 5-on-5, the smaller formats. Yeah. And Coach Adams coached at 7-on-7. I've coached at 9-on-9, and it just changes. It's really eye discipline for them. It's really the eye discipline because 5-on-5 they get clear vision of running backs. There's no line keys for them to read. 9-on-9 changes that. You get the guards added in, center and guards. And it just changes how they see and look. So when we get young linebackers come to Great Britain and they're playing 11-on-11 all of a sudden, everything looks cloudy for them. Everything looks like that video that Coach Fab just showed with regard to Miami Hurricanes, because it all looks chaotic. So it's about eye discipline for us. And if you can get your eyes right, the players can play a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think whilst I'm no expert in this room, I think one of the things I've noticed is from an offensive lineman perspective is they don't. I feel like at a higher level, like when I've played against Ben, I've never actually hit Ben because Ben's not trying to hit me, if that makes sense. Whereas if Ben was playing Div 2, he's going to go, right, I'll take him away, I'll try and batter him. So I noticed that they play with their head a lot more.
If Ben tried to hit you, he'd hit you twice and you wouldn't even realise.
You're underestimating Ben, I tell you that.
You hit you twice in the next
secret is, Mike, you're not holding the ball.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the point.
Don't need to mess around.
Yeah, no, that's what I was, and I was alluding to more the smartness of that play is that instead of thinking, offensive linemen are just an inconvenience for you, aren't they, in terms of getting the ball? So that's when I've noticed from my perspective. Anyway, there's my 2 cents, guys. You can have that. That's free knowledge for you all. Don't worry about that. One of the questions I did have for you all, they're all like, shut up, Mike, is how do you teach linebackers to adjust when the motion changes the formation? So let's say an orbit motion or whatever that motion may be. So they go from, let's say, spread to trips. Does that, obviously for a linebacker, that can, early on, that can really, I'm assuming, confuse them. Is that just dependent on the man or zone coverage, or is there anything different you would teach them there?
So we're getting into scheme kind of questions there where, as a defensive philosophy, what are we going to change based on that adjustment? So if it does go to trips, now we're thinking about different coverage calls. If it's something like an orbit or a jet motion, that's a pre-snap read. That should be in our scout in our classroom time. We know they're more likely to run a certain play based on that motion, that adjustment. In terms of on the field, I usually don't like players running around trying to adjust and say, oh no, I normally cover the number 3 receiver, so now I need to stand on this side because he's just moved. We should be able to translate our technique, whether that's slide, whether it's just from the same spot. I can see where the guy is, I can see where the threat is, I can still play him from my spot, and I don't need to worry about it. So it's having the confidence in the scheme and the playbook and talking to each other, communication, check, you got that guy, I got this guy, and then just being able to play and not get phased by it.
So I've got a question for the guys that coach at 19s and 17s. What's the most difficult thing that you've got to do of getting these guys going into 11s? Like, what can let's say local coaches do to make your guys' job a little easier?
100%, it's overall knowledge and knowledge base of developing the athlete with regard, because we play 5s and 7s at those younger ages, and they play a lot of man-to-man. So we did recruit a lot of players that can come in and play man and press. But when you get international levels, and we're going to play international games, and as Ben alluded to, they start building formations into trips or playing different formations. Now we have to run zone coverages, and our biggest thing is trying to teach in a short period of time zone coverages to the level that was going to handle GB international games.
So what would you say to those local coaches? What could you recommend some drills that they could maybe do to get these guys ready to go up to GB?
Yeah, 100%. And Coach Neil wants to get Coach Neil Master wants to get regional opportunities out where coaches can come out and players can come in. The local teams can experience.
Just to let you all know, sorry Russ for interrupting. Just for people that didn't understand that's Nelly to everyone.
Yeah.
Nelly, yeah. I thought I better put that logo. Who's Neil? It's Nelly for everyone.
Nelly.
Yeah, there's usually translation needed.
Set up regional opportunities for people to learn, coaches to get out, or coaches to come in and just volunteer opportunity, more times and trials and opportunities of building the program. But it allows us to help develop the players that haven't experienced that. You know, there's some great athletes out there that all the coaches have seen, and I let them add to it because they deal with them. They deal with them one-to-one in their units. But that's the biggest thing I've seen.
I would add to that obviously Russ is talking about the good work that sort of coach Nelly is trying to do there, but at the same time, like, you can't ask a club to give up their own time that they don't have much of anyway. Teaching the 5-a-side game, let alone start to talk about 11 on 11, which I think is why GB is so important, because it's their own exposure they get until they sort of go up, and even when they go up to junior, they're still not talking 11 on 11. So that's why I think, obviously, as mentioned before, Coach Nelly's ideas that he's been putting forward are sort of groundbreaking in my eyes, because they need that experience, but we can't give it to them. So it's a difficult thing, but there's nothing you can do until they get to this level. They get to this level.
I'll put it this way, right? For someone that coaches at that level, if you guys said to me, listen, your guys have a better chance of making this squad if he's done this drill a bit more often, I would be doing that drill. You know what I mean? But I want my guys there.
So I do have some that do it. I do have some that go to. I get the adult coaches from Bournemouth Bobcats, for example, and they'll come down and they'll teach them 11-side stuff, and and they'll get an offensive line in front of them, get them for quarterbacks, for example, and get them throwing with an offensive line. You can, but it's got to be done in their own time.
So what I'm getting from this is not necessarily the drills as such as Fab was probably going to allude to. Then it's more about the eye discipline and vision and learning the game a little bit more.
Exposure.
Fundamental as well.
Abe's touched on it. You know, the 5-a-side team. The purpose of the 5-a-side team is to be competitive and have fun, enjoying playing 5-a-side. It's not just to service the next level up. But players that want to do that unfortunately, you want to do it, you're going to have to put more time in. Coach, you want to teach them, you're going to have to put more time in. If there's a facility within your network that you've got a uni team and players that could come down and help or whatever, in that case, then that will help. But Russ has pointed out, there isn't a magic drill for anything, for coverage, for blitzing, for nothing. It's all the whole package, and having that football 101, like just knowing on a pitch, like on a drawing on a field, where the zones are, so everybody actually knows when you're saying you've got to go to the flat, the U5, the under, the 5-a-side, the 7-a-side, the 11-a-side player, they all know what the flat is. It's not it's not about necessarily running a drill for that, but teaching them those basics.
Is there a way that you guys could maybe put your terminology out there at least, and then get that across, so we could maybe publish that for you guys, and then if we can use the same terminology, at least when they come to your level, they know where they're fitting in.
And yeah, that's what these roundtables are about. The upcoming videos, these videos to a week until June are going to come out from positional coaches. They've all picked something they're really comfortable with. We've got some defensive back stuff coming out this week, I understand. There's a lot of things of that. It's about, they're 20 minutes. They're not a huge amount of time for people to put their time into. And you pick up the buzzwords, ask questions on all the videos, because there'll be somebody there that'll be able to answer and chat and talk back, and then there'll be roundtables, continually every Sunday. So that's when the questions can come in. We can ask them directly.
I tell you what, team, we're getting good at these plugs. I like it. You lot can come back. Fab, Russ, you're some seasoned pros on this. I love it. I've got a final question, which I'm looking to go to every one of you for, and I'm expecting the same kind of answers. But you are coached for different GB teams and different levels, etc. What would you expect to be seeing from what kind of traits are you looking for in linebackers at that kind of elite level for your disciplines, if that makes sense? And dare I say, for the coaches watching, what can they be passing on to those players to get them prepared for the GB level? And we'll go Fab down through to George. So Fab first.
Okay, because we've got a lot of football guys here, I'll actually leave them for the football and talk more on the S&C side of things. When we see a player turn up, they have to be flexible. Watch the video. You've got to have flexion. You've got to be able to move in all directions fast. Speed, size, not such a problem. Like especially U17, U19, I'm not expecting well-built guys per se, but if they can run fast and they have good aggression as well when they get there, then that's a big aspect. So physically able to move well in all directions, be balanced, and then I'll let the rest of the guys talk football stuff.
Perfect. And Ben?
So physical attributes, we can be a bit selective and specialized even within the linebacker position. So interior linebackers, we're looking for someone maybe a bit stouter who's going to come downhill and play against offensive linemen more often and tackles inside the box, whereas an outside linebacker needs to have confidence tackling in space and being able to deal with that extra room on the field. And then even more so, the boundary side is probably more of a hybrid defensive end type, whereas the field side is more of a hybrid safety type. And then I always look for, leadership and excellent knowledge of the game, because that helps to communicate. And I always think the linebackers should be able to be the generals and direct the rest of the defense on the field and communicate around what they see and what they think is going on.
Brilliant. Cheers, Ben and Simon.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's been said already, but yeah, most of the time at trials, they're great athletes. They're well conditioned, so they can survive practices without getting knocks and injuries. So really, the differential is football IQ. Understanding the game, not just knowing the playbook, understanding the game, understanding the threats from where you're playing. If you're on the boundary side or on the field side, if you've got two backs or if you've got single back, those sort of things make the real difference. And then outside of that, leadership and energy givers, people that just bring energy to practice, to games. They're the guys that we've had on squads that I remember. They just bring a whole new energy to the team, which is stops us having to do it, frankly. But yeah.
Perfect. I tell you what, I'm going to come to Russ last because that seems like the hardest job. So, Russ, you're having that one. You've got the short straw here, pal. Abe?
Yeah, I think Fab's points are probably the most important here, especially at U17 level, because you're not looking for them people with loads of football experience and knowledge, because they don't really exist at that level in the UK. So the thing you're looking for coming from the five-a-side game is somebody who, if we're talking linebacker, someone who could tackle well, someone who's athletic, and just that a little bit above everybody else. The guys that have made it from Salisbury have all been rugby players that that have just been great tacklers and great athletes. So I think for U17, I think Fab's points are probably the most important before any football, just because you're not going to have that level of experience anyway.
Cheers, man. No pressure, George. That was a short straw. What your partner's already covered most. Fab's covered the whole, so no pressure, bud.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree. It's about body control. If you've got someone coming in who understands how their body works, can change direction quickly and aggressively, it's going to be much easier to teach them every bit of technique that you need to teach them. If you've got someone coming in who is maybe a little bit clumsy with their feet, doesn't have the strength within their body to really control it, it's going to be slightly harder for them to learn those techniques. And then I think the last thing would probably be passion and interest and wanting to take reps. That's something that really stands out to me, is you can always tell the guys who want the reps and the guys who don't. And if you're one of the guys who turns up, is really passionate, and again, like Simon says, brings the energy, wants the reps and is really keen, they're going to shine out. They're going to shine. And yeah, I think that's probably the only thing that we've not really touched on yet.
Good nugget there at the end, George. I like that. Russ, I am relying. You're definitely still going to have something. There's something we've not covered there, and there's no pressure for you.
The coaches have touched on it, but you don't. We're talking about developing athletes at U17 that are 13, 14, and 15 years of age. And I'm coaching at a high school level, 16, 17, and 18 now. And what they have to understand is they're not the finished model right now. All right, they can grow, they can build, they can add muscle, they can add strength. So it is about, do they have something a little bit special about them with the leadership qualities, as the coaches have pointed out? Do they have a little bit of quickness or speed? Change of direction was what I was going to say, but George beat me to it. But that's the point when you ask them us all. And they can develop themselves. I've seen players come in at, 6 foot and 160 pounds, and they're now almost up to 190, 200 pounds because they can grow. But the finished model, as they go through the GB program, from 17 to 19 to students to adult, there's a big difference between a 14-year-old and a 24-year-old. And they can add that on through the program, through the strength and conditioning. Coaches can help out with good change of direction and good fundamental skills. And let's not forget that linebackers need very good eyes to be able to play the game.
And the winner of that round is George. I like that answer with stealing reps. But you're going to have to drag me out by my dead carcass in order to get me off that field. So I like that.
No, I like
I'm on George.
Flexibility one. Flexibility doesn't get mentioned enough.
Well, it's because I've got absolutely fucking none of it. Sorry for dropping the F-bomb right at the end. It was near the end, sorry.
It was so close.
We were so close, but if anyone was going to do it, it was me. So you're all very welcome for that. But when we're talking, I actually can touch my toes, so I'm relatively flexible. Anyone wants a private show on that, hook me up afterwards. Sorry, this is for tomorrow's show. Sorry, guys. I need to remember on the round table with the Great Britain coaching staff. This is why they don't often let me do these kind of things. But while we're here, we're live. They can't stop it now. So
that's getting edited out.
That's getting edited. Look, I think it was absolutely fantastic. There's no more needs to be said, I don't think, in terms of linebackers. I think you guys are all credit for you all coming together and fantastic coverage. And other than me spoiling it right at the very end, I think it was a fantastic show. So thanks so much for all coming on. And Fab will probably be back next week anyway. He seems to be. He's part of the furniture now with this Fab on the round table.
I'm a jacket, man.
Okay, great.
I was only testing out this link for this week. So you're going to do an intro, right? Am I? Okay. Thanks.
But thanks very much for joining, guys. I'm sure everyone watching has really the comments are coming in, so really helpful. Thank you, guys. So thank you very much, and join us. And thank you very much. So join us tomorrow for another show of Brick Balling. Whilst I've got you here, if you're all interested, Adam's going to be doing some interviews with some young quarterbacks who are trying to make it stateside. So be an interesting show. Not like any of you care, because you'll all just want to kill them anyway, as a true linebacking coach. So thanks very much for joining, guys, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.